Hey guys, what is up? It's your pal Dave from notesandvolts.com, back again for part 2 of the DMX to MIDI project. So what is that, you may ask? Well, this is a project where we take DMX signals from your lighting board, your lighting software, wherever you get DMX signals from. I'm not going to judge. And we take those signals and we convert them through a circuit and some code into MIDI that you can use to control other things. What I'm going to do with it is take those MIDI signals and put them into OBS streaming software and make the screen and the video do things in time to the music. That's kind of fun. In part 1, we built up the circuit and uploaded the code and kind of explained how it works. So if you haven't seen that yet, maybe you should do it because I don't know how this will make sense otherwise. But in this part, we're going to configure our lighting software, we're going to configure our video software, and we're going to make everything work together, hopefully. All right, that's the plan, so let's get started. All right, so now we've done all the hard work, we can start having some fun and go to SoundSwitch and start setting up our light show. All right, so here we are in the SoundSwitch DMX setup page, and let's look at how we can add fixtures and configure this for our setup. So what you're looking at here is something called a DMX universe. A DMX universe is one DMX controller and all the channels it can access. And a DMX universe consists of 512 channels from 1 to 512. So you can see the SoundSwitch software actually controls 2 universes, so I could actually have 2 different DMX controllers controlling 2 different sets of lights. So let's take a look at universe 1, and that's the one where I have my lights set up. Now, if you're not sure how DMX works, it's a little weird if you're used to MIDI, but it's pretty simple when you understand the concept. So this light here, the color strip, is the light on top of my TV. Now, this is a 4-channel fixture, and if I kind of move it away, you can see it's on channels 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, I can move this anywhere I want, but wherever I move it, it's still going to take up 4 adjacent channels. So now that I've decided my color strip light is going to start on channel 1, what I need to do is go to that light, and on the back there'll be a display, and I can set it to channel 1. So that means the light knows that it's going to start on channel 1. It knows it needs 4 channels, so it's going to listen to channel 1. It's also going to listen to 2, 3, and 4. Now, my second color strip light is the same thing, and it's at the bottom there. And you notice I've started that one on channel 7. So what I would do for that light is go to the back, set it on channel 7, and it's going to take 4 channels, so it's going to listen to channel 7, 8, 9, and 10. So if you think about it, if I set both of those fixtures to channel 1, they would both act the exact same. So that may be something you want to do. If you have a whole bunch of lights that you want to do the exact same thing, you could set them all for the same channel. All right, so now let's set up our DMX to MIDI fixtures. So what I want to do is I want to set up very small single channel fixtures. So you notice I've got 3 fixtures here for the 3 lights we set up in our software. Now, to set up these little 1-channel fixtures, we want to go to our fixtures list. And if we look in the manufacturers, and it's got pretty much all the lighting manufacturers you could want, but we're going to go to custom mappings. And in custom mappings, if we scroll down, there is a little DMX1 channel 1 fixture, and I can just drag it and put it wherever I want. I just want to make sure the number matches the number we set up in our program. And if you remember, we set up 15, 16, and 17. Once I'm sure everything's correct, I can get out of this page. Okay, so finally we're at the page where we can design our light show. So what I have here is the light show that I showed at the beginning of the video. And here I have my 3 DMX to MIDI fixtures, and here are my 2 color strips. Now this bottom fixture is actually my hue light bulb, so I can actually control the other lights in my lab too with this one program. If you look at what's happening, this top channel is actually mapped in OBS to screen rotation. Now, if you look at the timeline, it's basically divided up into beats. So this is 4 beats. This would be 1 bar. So basically we're starting at 0, we're going up to maximum value, and then we're going back to 0. So what is actually happening? The DMX is sending out 0 to 255 and then back to 0. Our project is converting that to MIDI numbers 0 to 127 and then back to 0. And I have that mapped in OBS to screen rotation. So 0 would be no rotation, and then it's going to gradually spin around until it does a 360. So max value will be 360 degrees, and then it's going to start going back the other way and rotate back to normal. All right, now let's take a look at DMX channel 17. And if you remember, we set that up to a note on and off. And what I have that set to in OBS is a filter on and off. So I have this crazy color filter, and basically when the value goes high, so I'm basically going max value, it's going to be a note on, it's going to turn the filter on, and then when the value drops to 0, it's going to be a note off, and it's going to set the filter off. So the filter is going to flash on and off in time to the music. All right, let's take a look at channel 16 here, and that's kind of an interesting one. So if you remember back in our program, we set a minimum value of 63 and the maximum value at full value. So what I've done with this channel is I've mapped it to the video size in OBS. The way OBS works is that a 0 value in that parameter will basically shrink the screen to nothing. And a full value in that parameter will blow it up so it's just huge. So that's not what I want. I want the screen to stay at normal zoom so it fills the entire window. And then when the beat hits, I want it just to pulse out a little bit and then go back to normal. So that's where our minimum parameter comes in handy. So if you look what's happening, our value is starting at 0, but we set the minimum value in our program to 63, which is exactly halfway. So nothing's going to happen until it crosses the halfway mark, 63, and then it's just going to expand the screen just a little bit. That's going to happen on the beat, and then it's immediately going to start dropping down. And it's going to start shrinking back to normal, but once it crosses the 63 mark, it's not going to shrink anymore. So what we're going to get is full screen, up a little bit, and then back to full screen. And that's exactly what we want. Now, I could program that in the actual waveforms, but this program kind of makes it hard because it doesn't tell you exactly what values you're inputting. So it's kind of hard to do. So that's why I added those minimum and maximum parameters. Now these 2 rows are my DMX lighting fixtures, and you can see I've basically got a pulse on the beat that's going to fade down to 0. And I've got them alternating. So the top light and then the bottom light on beat 2, the top light on beat 3, and the bottom light on beat 4. So notice I've also added colors. So this is going to be red for 4 bars, and this one will be blue. And then the top one will switch to blue and the bottom one will switch to red. Now finally, the bottom line are my hue lights that are going to pulse on and off every beat with a red color. And then when everything's good, we're going to hit Ableton Link, and we're going to link it up to the rest of my music software. If you're not using Ableton Link, you can also use MIDI Sync for this program as well. So if everything's working okay, once your Teensy is plugged in, you should see your LED turn on. Next, we'll take your DMX cable and we'll plug it into the input port. Now, if you remember, we set debug to true. So if you go to Tools and you go to Serial Monitor, you'll get your serial monitor pop up. Now, we may need to restart the Teensy to get it talking to the serial monitor. You can do that by pushing the little reset button right there. And there you go. So now the Teensy is outputting some information. So the first thing it does is it tells you the fixtures that you've programmed. So the DMX channel, the MIDI value, the type, which is either 0 for CC or 1 for note, and the minimum and maximum values. Next, it's going to start listening for DMX values coming in, and the ones that match your fixtures will get printed out below. So you can see we got a couple of values already. So we've got DMX channel 16 with a value of 152. And remember 16 was this fixture here. So the MIDI CC it's putting out is 86. The value is 76. And the channel is 1. So remember we set the minimum value for this fixture at 63. So even if this value tries to drop below 63, it will not. It will stay at 63 at minimum. The next value we got was DMX channel 17, which is this guy, with a value of 254. And channel 17 is a type 1, which is a MIDI note. So we've got a MIDI note on note number 20 with a value of 127 on MIDI channel 1. So one thing to point out is that DMX values can go from 0 to 255. So it's an 8-bit number. So you can see these numbers go from 0 to 255 depending on what your software is putting out. Whereas MIDI numbers are 7-bit values, so they can only go from 0 to 127. So basically a lot of what this project is doing is taking the input number and converting it to a 7-bit number, which is basically half. So if you had a DMX number of 100, your MIDI number would be 50. Now I've started my DMX software and it's now sending out values, and you can see those values scrolling by here. And you can also notice that our indicator light on our board is kind of flickering on and off to indicate the data is coming in. So that's a good way to tell that you've actually got data coming in and it's being read. So now I've stopped my DMX controller, and you can scroll through the values if you want and make sure everything looks exactly like you want. Once you're happy with the results, you can go back to your program, set your debugs to false, and re-upload it, and now you won't get any of that serial information slowing you down. Okay, now we're going to set up OBS and make it understand MIDI and hopefully connect everything together. First, let me show you my setup and how I have all the hardware connected. For this demonstration, I'm going to run OBS on this laptop because I'm actually filming on OBS as well, so I can't really film and do the demonstration. You understand. So we're running a separate instance of OBS on this laptop. Now here's our DMX to MIDI project. I have a USB cable running from this into my laptop, and that's providing power and data connection. Here is my DMX cable running to another computer running SoundSwitch, and that's going to send the DMX messages to our project. So if all goes according to plan, the DMX messages are going to come in here. They're going to get translated by our project, sent out the USB cable into OBS that will understand them and do fun things. That's the plan. So here's my laptop, and I'm running OBS, and I've got just one video source, which is my logo, and you can see it right here. Now to make OBS understand MIDI, we have to add a software plugin. And if you go to Tools, you can see it right here. It's called OBS Midi MG. I'll put a link in the video description to the exact software I use, but just go to the page, download it, and install it on your computer. And then when you go to the Tools menu, you should get this OBS Midi MG setup. One thing to keep in mind is that this particular plugin only works with OBS 28 or higher. So I'm on 29, which is the latest version as of the filming of this video. But if you're still on 27, there is an older version of OBS Midi. I have not tested it, but it should work. If you want to test it, let me know how it goes. When everything's configured, just go to Tools, go to OBS Midi MG Setup, and you'll get the setup window. So the first thing we need to do is tell the software which MIDI device we're listening to. If you go to this active device drop down, you'll see all the devices connected to your computer, and you want to find the DMX to MIDI device. Next, we're going to need to create some bindings. So if you click the create binding, you will create a new one. I've already got two, one called rotate and one called scale. So let's take a look at those. So if we open up rotate, you can see that it's a control change that we're listening to. It's on channel 1 and control number 85. So if you remember when we set up our fixtures in the software, we created 3 fixtures. One was on DMX channel 15, and it's a CC fixture that is sending out CC messages on 85 MIDI channel 1. And that is what we're going to listen to with this binding. So I've set MIDI channel 1, CC control number 85, so that should connect it to that fixture. So I can set the values it will listen to. Either it could be fixed, or I listen to all the values from 0 to 127, and that's what we want, because we want it to change with the increasing and decreasing values. So once we've got that set up, we can set up what we want to do with that information. So what I want to do is I want to control a video source, and it's going to be in scene 1, which is my only scene, and it's going to be my logo movie clip, and that's the only source I have, so that's the only one showing up. What I want to do with it is I want to rotate the source. So there's lots of things we could do, but I want this one to rotate the source, and I want the rotation to be 0 to 127, so I want it to read the actual values. If I wanted to, I could invert that and do 127 to 0, but it wouldn't really matter in this case. It would just make it rotate the opposite direction, so we'll just leave it as normal, 0 to 127. Next, we'll take a look at the scale binding. Now, if we go back to our software, remember we set up a fixture on DMX channel 16, MIDI channel 1, CC number 86, and we set a limit. So we set a lower limit to 63 and an upper limit to full value. So basically that means that this particular fixture, if the input drops below 63, it will just stay at 63, and it will only respond to things that go above 63. So it's kind of like a lower limit. So here is the binding here. Once again, it's a control change. MIDI channel 1, we're listening to CC number 86. We want to respond to the full value 0 to 127. And once again, we're going to control a video source on scene 1, which is my logo clip. And for this one, we want to do a source scale. So that's going to make the video bigger and smaller. I want it to respond to values in the X direction and the Y direction. So we'll set both of those 0 to 127. And finally, I'll set this magnitude parameter to 2. And what that's going to do is going to set the video to full screen when the input value is exactly half. Now, if you remember when we did our program, we actually created 3 fixtures. And this last one listened to DMX channel 17. It transmits on MIDI channel 1, note number 20, because it's a note, not a CC. Well, in order to use that, we're going to have to create a new binding. So just go to create binding, and we'll get this untitled binding. Let's give it a title. We're going to call this filter. So let's set it up. So it's going to be a note on, not a CC. It's going to be on MIDI channel 1, and the note we said was 20. Once again, we'll set it to listen to all incoming data. So that's going to be the velocity from 0 to 127. Now, if I look at my video clip, I've actually set up a filter for this clip. So if I go to filters, I did a color correction filter. Right now it's off. If I turn it on, you can see it kind of turns it a weird green. And then if I turn it off again, it will go back to normal. So what I want to be able to do is flash this filter on and off to the beat. So that's what we're going to do with our binding. So back in our MIDI setup menu, we're going to go to the thing we want to control, and we're going to scroll down until we get to filters. And which filter do we want to control? Well, we want to control the filter on logo. And it's if I had more than one filter, they'd be here, but we only have the one color correction. So what we're going to want to do with this filter is basically toggle it on and off every time a note on comes in. So we'll go to toggle filter display. And there you go, everything is set up. Now I'm going to start SoundSwitch and we can see if those DMX commands are actually triggering our video clip. And there you go, we have our rotation, we have our scaling in and out to the beat, and we have our filter toggling on and off. I think that's a successful demo. All right, guys, another project in the books. I hope you had fun with it. But before we go, as always, we got to thank my patrons on Patreon. Thank you very much, guys, and let's enjoy your names.